Hey, blank box artists. It's good to see y'all again. I'm Beth Joy. I'm one of the art educators here at the NCCIl, and we are so excited about this month's blank box. We're going to be doing a painting that's inspired by Peter Brown's book, The Curious Garden. And you got this book in your box. It's an awesome one, but it tells a story about this garden in a city that went from looking really ugly to becoming really, really pretty. And did you know that one of the cool things about the NCCIl is that we get to share the original work from these books? So on our show right now, we have these two images that came from The Curious Garden. Here's one of the before pictures of the garden when it was kind of drab and dreary, and then one of the pictures that Peter Brown illustrated that shows it a little more beautiful. So today we're going to be drawing and painting some topiaries that are inspired by one of the images in his book. I think you're going to love it. We're going to talk about value. We're going to talk about some painting skills, some drawing skills. I think you're going to get a lot out of this project. See you in the studio. Okay, guys, let's get this painting started. We are going to start by painting our background. And one thing that I always think about whenever I'm starting to paint my background is you have this big space. You want to pick up your biggest paintbrush to paint the background. We wouldn't want to paint our background with this little bitty brush. We want to go with our bigger one. So what we're going to be doing here is creating this effect right here that goes from the dark brown up to the white that's behind our animal topiaries, okay? So we're going to be using some water for this to kind of water down our paint, and we're going to be using our white and our brown. So you can open up those two pods, and we're going to start by just dipping our paintbrush into our water and getting some wet on our brush. And I'm gonna have y'all just kind of put some water down onto your canvas that's just plain water. This is gonna give us kind of a light, airy background. And you can cover the whole piece, your whole canvas with this light brushing of water. And we're going to start with our brown, and we're going to get this kind of lower area that shows where the topiaries are kind of standing on. Okay, and you'll see that that water is going to kind of water down your paint. You know what? I'm going to pick up a little bit more, and I'm going to use it just to create the ground that we're seeing it on, okay? And you'll notice we want our paint strokes to be going in a horizontal direction. We don't want vertical paint strokes. So as you fill that in, go back and forth in the direction of the canvas. And if you need to spread that out, I would say don't dip in more paint. Just grab some more water and use that paint that you already have on the canvas to just keep on spreading it out and kind of thinning it out. This is a great way to start a painting because the water and that acrylic paint are going to dry really quickly and give you kind of a nice fluid background, and then you can come back on top with some really vibrant, heavy painting. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and rinse my brush, and now I'm gonna dab it, make sure that all that brown is out of my paintbrush, and then I'm gonna make sure there's enough white up here, and then I'm gonna pick up my white. I'm gonna do the same thing up at the top. This is gonna be a little bit harder to see, but back and forth, back and forth. Let's do the area that doesn't have the brown in it yet, and then Remember, if you want to kind of make your paint go a little bit further, dip it back into the water. And then, okay, so once you get kind of the air part done, we're going to start blending this brown and this white. We want it to be a nice smooth transition, not a transition that looks like there's a line in between. So just kind of coming in, pulling that white down. At this place, if you want to use kind of some scribbly brush strokes, that would be a good idea. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just bring this down a little bit further. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up my paper towel. And sometimes I do this whenever I'm not fully achieving the effect that I want with my paintbrush. I pick up my paper towel. Let's fold it over a little bit. And I'm just going to use this and kind of blot that line to help give a little bit more of that blended effect. Maybe a little bit of scrubbing motion. And then that way we're kind of getting that look that's a little bit closer to our reference image. Okay, background's done. Let's set that aside. Okay, while our background's drying, I want us to go over a little bit of a drawing lesson. And one of the things that helps me draw really every time I look at something that I'm going to be drawing by hand, I like to break it down into simple shapes. So here with this elephant, I'm already seeing a nice big oval. So right here, I see a nice oval. There's his body. Great, huh? So then I see another oval that kind of overlaps this other one for his head. And then this is just kind of a simple tube shape. We can add those extras in later, but then even with this ear, I see a nice, narrow, long, skinny oval. And then even here, this is kind of like a half oval. So everybody knows how to draw these really simple shapes. So when you're looking at something that's a little bit bigger and you're thinking, how am I going to tackle that? Instead of thinking about this shape as a whole, break it down into smaller shapes. Here's another little half oval right there. So even right over here with our moose, you know what I see with him? I see him almost as like a triangle that has really rounded edges. So here, even going here, I'm thinking, okay, he's kind of like a triangle that has rounded edges. And then even from here, I see another oval for his head. And then look how simple this is. This is just some lines for the antlers that just kind of go straight down the center and then come up this way. Okay, and then we can even connect these two with just two lines. And again, we have these long, narrow, skinny ovals for the legs of our moose. And now let's go over to our giraffe. So his body, again, is just a nice circle. So looking there, perfect circle. And then some long, skinny half ovals again. And then look at this nice long neck. You know what? I think I actually see this is the better shape to do. Let's do a oval again and then just connect those with two lines. Good. Okay, so you can use your pencil from home, or if you have a Sharpie or a black marker, why don't you practice breaking this down into simple shapes? And then even here, let me come back to this. I want to show you how easy that is. That's just like a backwards J. And then here's another one that comes out from underneath. How's that? And these are just some nice curved lines that come to a point. So when you look at it like that, it's really, really easy to break a picture down. And it's something that I learned very early on when I started learning how to make art. And it's something that I still use today. So take a little bit of time. You can use a pencil, or if you have a dark black pen or a brown marker or whatever, go ahead and kind of break those down. And then we're going to be using a pencil to draw this onto our canvas, so we'll have a little bit of reference. Okay, now we have our reference image and our canvas that has a dry background on it. And now let's start drawing in our animal topiaries, and then we'll paint it after that. So I'm going to be using a black marker just so that you can see the pictures really well, but I want you to use a pencil because these lines are something we're not going to want to see at the very end of our project, okay? So I'm going to be using the black marker, but you use a pencil. Cool? Okay, so let's start with our elephant. And he's pretty much like a big circle right in the center of your canvas. So if you're using a pencil, this isn't something that's going to give you too much pressure because you can always erase. And you know what about paint that I love is that you can usually always paint over something, especially with acrylic paint. So if you mess up on something, even when you're painting or when you're, drawing this out, not a big deal because you can either erase it and then later on you could always paint over it with paint. So I'm just going to start drawing in these simple shapes that we've already found in this image. So here I'm going to do that backwards J. And I'm going to come right back over here. I'm going to pull this up. And then these tusks, we'll just draw those in. And then this one's just a little bit below. Now let's draw in these legs. And I'm going to make sure that I'm kind of drawing them the same way that Peter Brown drew them in this book. I'm going to make this one a little bit longer. There we go. Now back here, we got this one. And then back here, we got this one. Cool. We got our elephant. Okay. Next, let's do our giraffe. So remember, he started with just a simple circle. And then up here, we had a little oval. And then all we're going to do is connect here and connect here. I'm going to make this oval just a little bit bigger. I'm going to make this circle. This is what I do sometimes. I just kind of modify my shapes if they're not exactly how I want them. And I'm going to get this to come straight back down. Maybe that one to curve. Okay, now let's do these legs. There's one kind of coming out at that angle, this angle, and then here, let's do this one. There's this one. Okay, we got two animals done. Let's go for our moose. Remember, he had the triangle body that kind of has rounded edges. And then let me see where this little piece right here, his head. And then all it had was two lines that connected that. And then he had long, skinny legs. I'm going to make those back legs just a smidge shorter so that they give the illusion that they're really sitting behind these front legs. Okay, let's give him those horns. Remember, it was just a line with some spikes. And yours does not have to look exactly like Peter Brown's. This is just practice. You're learning those art skills. Okay. We have the basics of what we're going to be painting. So let's go ahead and That looks good. Okay. Okay, let's start with our paintbrush. You know what we're gonna do? Let's get a start with our lighter colors. You're gonna want a plate from home, something that you can mix some paint on, because we're gonna be looking at value with this painting. So we're gonna make a green that is a light green. We're gonna make a green that's like a medium color green, and then we're gonna have a dark green. And what value is gonna do for your artwork is it's gonna start to give the illusion of depth, that it's actually standing there. So we're gonna start, but we're gonna get some of these basic shapes kind of painted over. So let's start with our lightest green. And I'm just gonna kind of go over some of these basic shapes. Right here. This is gonna get us started. You know, mine kind of peek through a little bit more because I use that Sharpie, but use pencil. So yours will be just easy to cover. Let's get this. We're using that square brush, not our little one yet. We'll wait for our little one until we start to add some detail. So here, I'm just gonna go right back over, make these shapes, get them nice and kind of there, figured out. Okay. These shapes are nice because you're not working with like super detailed anything here. This is basically just our simple shapes, circles, ovals, straight lines. They're very simple shapes. We'll add in the giraffe's horns when we are doing some detail work later with our little brush. So we'll just leave those bare for a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna come back over some of these places that still have that dark line on them. We'll go back over our moose horns as well with our lighter. Okay, go ahead and clean your brush. And we're gonna start to lay down a little bit of color. So I want you to go ahead and open your dark green and leave your light green open. And our dark green, we're going to go ahead and pick some of this up, and even though this is not fully dry, it's not going to do it any harm to kind of mix together. We're going to lay down our dark green on the bottom side of our elephant. And we're going to do the same thing for our giraffe. And I want you to look at your reference image. Look at the bottom of the ear. The bottom of the ear is dark, and it kind of goes up this way. And then the bottom of the trunk is dark as well. So we want to put some of that dark paint down. We're just going to mimic our reference image. And then on the bottom half of the tusk, we're going to have a little bit there. And then let's move over to our giraffe. The bottom half of the giraffe's head, we're going to have that, and then even kind of down the neck a little bit. And then here, bottom half of the body. And we're just, this is just getting the painting started. We're going from the big backgrounds of the animals, and then we'll slowly move towards the detail. So we're just kind of getting some background colors in place, and then we'll slowly move towards like the little things, like the detail of the leaves. And we're even going to add in those pretty red birds. So again, we're just going to mimic our reference image, just putting down that dark color. Wherever you see it in the reference image, okay? And then I'm going to come up here on the head a little bit, put it there. Okay. Let's wash our brush and get it nice and clean. Blot it on your paper towel until, kind of swirl it around on your paper towel until you don't have any more color. And then for our medium, we're going to take both of these colors and we're going to mix them. So I'm going to make a little pile of my light green, kind of like a yellow green. Just a small pile with my brush, using it kind of like a little shovel. Okay, now I'm going to come in, rinse, because we're going to be picking up some green, some dark green with the end of our brush, and we don't want it to contaminate our dark green. We want our colors to stay pure. You just need a very little bit. You're not going to need much. We're going to mix. And this is how we're going to get our medium color. So now you're going to come in. If this is still wet, that's even better because it'll blend really well. You're going to start to fill in some of the spots that are the medium color. And we're going to even kind of fill in quite a bit of this space. So just come in. Let's go all the way to the top of that. We're going to kind of go over these, fill in that tusk. Now back up here. Let's kind of go over this, give it another layer, making sure we're covering up all those lines. Whoop. I went a little thick with that, but I think it's going to be all right. Okay, let's go pick up a little bit more and finish our mousse. Okay, take a little step back. It's starting to come together. We're getting there. Okay, let's go ahead at this point. I'm going to pick up my little brush and I am going to go over these beautiful horns on this mousse. Just cover up those nice lines that you made. Let's add in, I have too much paint on my brush, so I'm gonna kind of wipe it off and just pick up a little bit. So let's do these guys. It was just like a line with a little circle on top. A line with a little circle on top. You know what? And I'm gonna kind of fix my little accident right here. Make this head just a little more of an oval. There we go. Okay. You know what I'm gonna do too? Let's go back to our big brush. Big brush, make sure it's nice and clean. Clean it there. And I'm gonna do one more layer of that dark green paint down here. And it doesn't have to be totally perfect. It needs to just like cover. And if you think about, you know, one of the things that I think about whenever I'm drawing or painting things that are in nature is that nature doesn't make perfect things. Like it's not gonna be, you know, you can use these nice brushy brush strokes and they're gonna be more like what nature produces, because nothing in nature is perfect. There's no perfect circles in nature. There's no perfect rectangles. There's nothing like that that's perfect. So I'm just coming in and just doing a little bit more dark green over the top of that, and then down this way. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna kind of blend it a little bit, and let's actually use that little trick that I showed y'all at the beginning that we used on the background. Let's take our brush, clean it, get some water in there. So just like you'd put paint in your brush, we're just gonna paint with a little bit of water to kind of blend out where these two colors meet. If there's any places that you kind of have a hard line where they meet together, why don't you just give it a little swap of water and kind of blend those out just a little bit. Cool. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing again. You know what? I'm not even gonna clean my brush. I'm gonna leave that on there. Nice watery paint. We're gonna come in and we're just gonna go over this again. Doing one more layer of paint, giving a little more texture, a little more brush strokes. Okay, sweet. We're gonna let this just dry a little bit. And then we're gonna come in with a little bit more details. Okay, next, we're gonna take our little brush and we're gonna start to add in some details. But we're gonna make some dark paint, so darker than our dark green. We're gonna be using some brown to add to that, and then open up our dark green again. If you want to use your big brush for blending instead of that little brush, I think that'd be a good idea. So just make sure your brush is really clean. And we're going to start with the lighter of the two colors. Let's start with our green. And just make like a little pile of that. We're not going to need a ton. And then wash your brush real good. Wash, wash, wash. And then we're gonna pick up just a little bit of brown on the end of our brush, so not too much. And then we're gonna mix that in. This is gonna give us a darker kind of army forest green. So what we're gonna be doing with this is adding it in to these underside. If you'll look really closely, you see these little leaves that have the dark colors on the bottom of it. We're gonna start to bring in some of that texture. So we'll let's go ahead and put like a little bit of some brush strokes of that color down on the bottom side of your animals. And you can even use some water to help blend this in again. So put a little bit of paint on your canvas, and then, okay, right here, and then back here, there's a lot on that piece, and kind of right here. Okay, now I'm gonna come back in again on the bottom side of this tusk. And as you get, towards the part of the painting that's not so much the background, you kind of have to pay a little bit more attention to your brushy strokes. You want them to be pretty accurate. And then right here on this ear. You know what? These are kind of heavy for me, so I'm going to come back in with some water. And I'm going to kind of blend them out. This water trick just works with, you can use it obviously with watercolor, but we're using acrylic paint right now. So acrylic is a water-based paint, and it works really, really well for blending with water. So I love acrylic paint. Dries quick. It cleans up quickly. It's really one of my favorite paints to paint with. Okay, I'm seeing this illusion coming in. The illusion of depth that we're wanting with these figures. Okay. You know what? I'm going to take my big brush with this one. I'm going to do a little bit of scrubbing right here. So just kind of going back and forth, picking up some of that water, making that maybe not so. I might pick up a little bit more of my green. And then after that, I'm going to come in again with my darker green on these legs. And then right here on the bottom side of the head. And then the bottom side of this neck. Okay, I'm liking how this is looking. I bet yours is looking awesome too. Okay, so now, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take my big brush again. Let's add a little bit more brown. We're gonna make it a little bit darker. So come back to your army green. Let's add a little bit more of that brown to it. Whew. My brown kind of took over. I'm gonna add a little bit more green too. So I gotta rinse my brush, make sure it's nice and clean before I dip into my green paint. So let's come in, maybe just a little bit more green. You know what? I'm going to show y'all a little trick real quick. Did you know that green and red are complements of each other? So if you're looking at a color wheel, green and red sit right across from each other. And did you know that you can darken your colors of paint by mixing the complement to it? So did you know that I'm looking to get just a little bit darker green? I'm gonna take some of my red. What do y'all think is gonna happen? It's gonna make it darker. And add in just a little bit of red. It's kind of giving it kind of a brown, dark tint, but I'm telling you, next to, in a painting, when you put red and green right next to each other, it really just sets it off. Okay, what we're gonna do now with this, we're gonna start to add some texture in. So we're gonna take this, our small paintbrush, and we're gonna follow kind of those original shapes that we put down at the very beginning of our lesson. And we're gonna come in and just make some little leaves. And this is gonna bring in a little bit of texture on the dark spots. We're gonna add some really light ones to the top side. We can even have these leaves kind of come over the edge, because leaves don't stay in, they kind of come off the edge. Okay, let's keep going to our other animals. I'm just gonna add these darker ones. Okay. Okay, so now let's mix in some bright ones for the top of our topiaries, or animals. So go back to your big brush, because it's so much easier to pick up paint with one that's has a little bit more space to it. So I'm gonna pick up my white first, because it is the lighter of the two. When you're mixing colors, you always wanna start with your lighter color. So start with your white, and then we're gonna be mixing in that yellow green. Okay, got a clean brush because I don't want to contaminate. And then I'm just gonna add that lime green, yellow green. You know what, and I think this needs just a little bit of our true green with it as well. So I'm just gonna do just a tiny corner of it with that. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so this color we're gonna pick it up with our smaller brush. It's a little more detailed, so we're gonna kind of get smaller with our brushes. And again, now we're gonna start just adding the texture to the top of our animals. This is like where the sun is hitting the animals. and making a nice glow on the very top of them. Okay, so we got our dark and our light. Let's do a medium for our leaves that are adding texture. So let's start with our light green. Put a little bit on your plate, kind of shovel it on there. And then rinse, rinse, rinse. Clean, clean, clean. And then let's do just a little bit of green. You know what? I'm going to take a little bit of this and put it in there as well. As you paint more and as you mix colors, you kind of start to get like an intuition about what's going to look good and, you know, where you put certain colors at and what's going to be next. And this is all just practice for you to become a better artist. That's what our Blank Box program is about. It's about helping you, a young artist, learn from books and then learn to implement it into your own art with it, you know, comes from your own ideas. We're taking Peter Brown's work from Curious Garden and just using it as inspiration, and we're practicing, but you can take these same skills and just apply them to your own artworks. These are just kind of getting blended a little bit into the dark area, a little bit into the light area. Okay. Not Okay, let's do some detail with the stem. So these are plants, so they got to have some way that they're connected to the earth, that they're getting their water and their nutrients. So I want you to just do some little stems coming out. You can even kind of show where it's hitting the ground. You're going to be using that fine brush for this part. And maybe, like on this one, there's like a few places that it's connected to the stem. This one. You kind of got to drag that brush and make sure that it is make sure it's at a nice fine point so you're getting that nice detail. Okay, we got some little spots. Now let's do I told you earlier that red and green look really good together. Let's add in these little red birds. And I love a bird because it's so simple to draw. It's basically the same as what I told you. It starts with a little circle. So you can draw this in if you want to. I'm just going to paint it. It's a little circle that has a little head. So another circle. And then this one just has a little tail that comes off the end. So there's our bird. And then I'm going to add the beak with another color a little bit. So again, you can do your circle for your bird. And then you can do another circle for your bird. And then just a little tail that comes off the end. There you have it. 2 birds on your moose topiary and your elephant topiary. If you want to add in those figures, you are welcome to do that. So one last thing, I'm going to take this dark color and I'm going to add some water to my brush, and I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow underneath each of my figures. This will just give that much more of an illusion that we're showing they have a shadow, so they're really standing on top of something, but they're blocking that light. So I'm just going to add water to my paint that I'm putting down so that it has a good, nice, smooth transition. Okay, there's another shadow. My last one, some water and some paint. Okay, there you go. I'm going to clean my brush, bring it to a point. And I'm just going to add a little bird beak in right there, maybe a little dot for its eye, and maybe another little bird beak and a dot for its eye. There we have it. If you want to go back through and continue to add the texture with the leaves, you're more than welcome to do that. If you want to come in and even blend, if you see some places that need some blending, you could even come back with your brush and some water and kind of blend just a little bit. You don't want to blend too much, but just a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, I think we're going to be done. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you've enjoyed creating art with us here at the Nickel. And stay tuned for our next blank box coming out in June with our calf artist. So it's going to be a great one. Stay tuned and we'll see you next time.